Hi everyone. Today we're going to cover a game in which the Black King was literally on a mission, ending on b1. Our players in this game were Vugar Gashimov and Alexander Grischuk. Vugar Gashimov, an amazing player, went as far as being ranked number 6 in the world, but he unfortunately passed away in 2014. And I will use this opportunity to express my condolences to his family and wish peace for him wherever he is. But my man Alexander Grischuk, he was like Gashimov, just extending his hand for a handshake, and then he said, "Wait for a second. Let me inhale this thing. Let's play." So Gashimov had the white pieces, opened with e4, and now Grischuk played Sicilian. Of course, every crazy game starts with this opening. Now we have not every Sicilian, we have another Sicilian. And now we do not have every Natter Sicilian, we have a bishop to g5 Natter Sicilian, which is perhaps the most complicated of them all. Now e6, f4, white plays like this, and now queen to b6. This is known as the poison pawn variation, because white really should not try to defend this, otherwise they're going to lose what's known as momentum, and they will lose the initiative. So, this was a favorite of Bobby Fischer. He said that, I'll take the pawn, it's absolutely fine, there's nothing wrong with that. To queen to d3, this is now the critical approach, takes rook b1, queen e3, and now f5. This is the type of position which you have to play to really test Black's position. Now, bishop to e7 takes takes. Now there are many sacrifices possible on e6 later in the game. Bishop to e2 now, queen e5 hits the bishop, bishop d2 just lines up against the queen, so now the queen drops back. And the reason why white can simply be fine with playing down a pawn in such a position and also have this very, very horrendous structure with 3 isolated pawns is that Black made one move to b6, took on b2, went to a3, went back to a5, and then went to c7. So literally you've developed 2 pieces, but then you wound your queen, I don't know like how many times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Yeah, that is quite something. Now g4. Of course, it's not very easy for white to capitalize, but this is the type of move you have to play. Now, ideas are to push the pawn to g5, dislodge the knight from defending h5, and then just enter there with the bishop and try to either weaken the structure or just get the king running into the center. Now the pawn goes to h6, and now a very, very beautiful geometrical motif, queen to h3. Now, this queen sort of teams up with the knight to put pressure on e6, but also puts some pressure on this h-file, looking to bring in and force in g5 with a lot more venom. Of course, the rook goes to a7. This is a very, very absurd move. Who plays like this? You want a castle, not to move your rook like that. But the idea is, of course, now the rook is defended. But here the rook goes to f. It was complete brain fart. Forget that. Knight c6 takes takes, and now e5 by Gashimov, which this move sort of gives the advantage. Well, you had to be a bit more calm and a bit more patient. You had to play the move rook to b3. That was one of the moves, and the idea is that this rook is very flexible and it's better than what it was in b1, because now it may go to c3, maybe goes to here, maybe here. I don't know, like it can go anywhere it wants in the future. But yeah, e5 was played, some sort of impatience by Gashimov. Pawn takes, now bishop to d3. You give up a piece to be infiltrating on h5, getting the king running, and also this is a pin. King goes to d7, now the rook goes to d1. So of course the knight is pinned. Grischuk plays rook h8, and now Gashimov says, wait, my bishop is hanging. Not my bishop is hanging, but that I just want to keep the bishop here, because when the board is so open, the bishops are going to be long range pieces and they're going to completely benefit from it, in comparison to the knights, which do not really benefit from the board being open, as they're as slow as a snail in comparison to the bishop. The bishop now goes to f4, a completely biased decision, which completely just loses the game. Well, the moves you had to play, for example, I don't know, like the queen going to e5, giving this bishop away, but there are many ideas you can play against this king, right? And maybe rook f7 and stuff, right? The idea is going to be against the king. You've given up a piece, a full piece and a pawn, but the king is just, these positions are so crazy. Of course, it's logical why bishop f4 was played. And now there are possible ideas of maybe if the bishop moves to play check. So now bishop to b4 check is the correct move, winning a pawn. But now the bishop drops back, and look at this rook. This rook is opening up, and this is very, very risky. It's very difficult to play this position. I would bet that you would lose this position. You would find a way. It's not really that difficult to find a way. Not to mention, I would also lose this. The queen goes now to d5, trading offering a trade, not just taking the rook. But now we have rook f7, king c6, the other idea of queen d5, freeing up the square, and now we have the move rook to c1. pinning the knight. What do? We move the king to b6, and literally the king is just halfway there, right? It's just halfway there to the b1 square. This is the way it's gone. Bishop to e3 check. The king goes to a5, and now after a3, I mean the thing is that there are many discoveries threatened, so this is more a defensive move. We play king to a4, unpinning the queen, literally, and now threatening to take this bishop. After pawn takes, we take the bishop. And the problem is this checkmate on e2 is very difficult to stop. Queen e5 check, king b3. It's amazing how you can just simply play this, and your king literally only has one move. I mean, c4 is also possible, but that's like looking at the rook. Now, rook takes knight, you have to play this. Queen takes bishop d2, and there's only one move which wins the game for black. Because if you play something, I don't know, like queen h3, what do? We play b5. Whoops. Now your king is completely stuck, and it may just, I mean, it definitely will get mated. I mean, there are ideas of here, I don't know, rook f3, maybe, I don't know, like, some things like that. So let's just continue with the game. b5 was not allowed. Instead, after bishop to d2, we play the only move, b6. Very important move, because you have to take, now otherwise the queens are traded, and I'm definitely winning. Now I can get queen e5 check. This was the problem. Now the queen loses control over e5, the king goes here, and now we play bishop to b7, a very, very beautiful move. We're up an entire rook, but the rooks are, I mean, uncoordinated, and they're not connected, so we give up a bishop, so we're now only up an exchange, but we activate our rooks. That's very important. Now the rook goes to f3 check. Watch the king as it goes. King to a2. It only wants to get higher. Now, I mean, it's probably looking to go to b1. The rook goes to f2. Now, I mean, there are ideas of perhaps moving the bishop, but not now, because this bishop is literally pinned, right? So there's not much threat right now. The king goes to b1, literally. And look at this idea. Black can play a very natural move, rook to c8, developing the rook, threatening rook to c1 checkmate. And because the bishop cannot take, and the escape squares are cut off. And the thing is that this is a very simple idea, but white hardly has a defense, because this is paralyzed. The king cannot move, the rook hardly moves. The queen goes to queen goes to f3, the rook goes here, and you're literally threatening it. There's only one way to actually avoid the mate, to play queen b3 check, but we play queen to b2, and everything is over. Takes, and yeah, in this position, Gashimov simply resigned. Thanks for watching this far. I hope you enjoyed this video and perhaps learned something from it. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.